The war room felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Commander Lee Min-ho sat in his corner chair, watching alien faces twist with fear and anger. The holographic display in the center showed red markers spreading across star systems like a disease. Each red dot meant another world lost to the Vrex. "We lost Kepler Station yesterday," announced Admiral Voss, her blue skin darkening with stress. 50,000 civilians. The Vrex tore through our defenses like paper. General Crick slammed his clawed hand on the metal table. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. His scales rippled from a usual green to bright amber, a sign that the reptilian commander was close to losing control. "Enough defensive thinking. We need to attack. Hit them with everything we have." "That's exactly what they want us to do," replied Delegate Yora, her crystal body catching the room's light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but her words carried sharp disagreement. "My people have survived for 10,000 years by building strong walls. We should fortify our remaining positions and—" Wing Commander Silas cut her off with an angry screech. His feathered crest stood straight up, making him look twice his normal size. "Walls won't stop them. They eat through metal like it's candy. We need airstrikes from above. Fast attacks, then retreat to space stations beyond their reach." The argument grew louder. More voices joined in. The mantis-like clicking delegation made their rapid tapping sounds that meant disagreement. The gaseous nebulans shifted their cloudy forms in agitation. Even the normally calm tree people from Vidania rustled their leaves with worry. Minho watched it all without moving. His dark eyes followed the tactical data streaming across his personal screen. Numbers, positions, casualty reports, all painting the same picture. They were losing badly. The Vrex were not like other enemies. They moved as one giant mind, millions of insect-like creatures following perfect coordination. Where other armies might hesitate or make mistakes, the Vrex simply advanced. They ate everything organic they found and turned metal into Mars ships. Every victory made them stronger. "The Northern Defense Grid fell this morning," reported a junior officer, his voice shaking. "The Vrex broke through in under 6 hours. Our best estimates say they'll reach the core worlds in 2 weeks." The room fell quiet for a moment. 2 weeks. That was not much time to save billions of lives. General Crick stood up, his full height making him tower over the table. "Then we make our stand at Proxima Junction. Every ship, every soldier. One final battle." "A suicide mission," whispered Delegate Yora. "Better than watching them devour everything we built," Crick shot back. Old Thex, sitting near the corner, kept glancing at the human commander. The weathered Korthek had gray scales and scars from dozens of battles. His left eye was artificial, replaced after a plasma blast during the Rim Wars. But both his real eye and his mechanical one showed the same concern as they focused on Minho. Thex remembered the siege of Outpost 7. The humans had been quiet then too. While everyone else shouted and planned grand strategies, the human soldiers sat in corners, thinking. 3 days later, Outpost 7 was saved by the strangest battle plan Thex had ever seen. It should not have worked, but it did. "So," Thex said quietly to General Crix, "perhaps we should ask Commander Minho for his thoughts." Crix glanced at the human. "What's to think about? We fight or we die. Simple choice." But Thex knew better. He had learned never to underestimate human silence. Other species got loud when they were planning war. Humans got quiet, dangerously quiet. The tactical display updated again. More red markers appeared. The Vrex advance was accelerating. Wing Commander Silas spread his wings in frustration. "At this rate, we won't have time to organize any defense. They're moving too fast." "They are hurting us," said Delegate Yora, "pushing us towards specific positions. They want us to make a desperate final stand." "Because they know they'll win," admitted General Crix, his scales fading to a dull brown color. The room grew quiet again. Everyone stared at the displays showing their shrinking territory. The Vrex controlled over 60% of this sector now. Their bioships grew larger every day, fed by conquered worlds. Minho still had not spoken. His fingers moved slowly across his datapad, reading reports that others had dismissed as unimportant. Supply lists, communication logs, even maintenance records from captured stations. Thex watched the human's face. He saw something there, not fear, not anger, but focus. The kind of dangerous focus that preceded the impossible becoming possible. "Commander Minho," Thex said, his voice cutting through the worried chatter. "You've been very quiet." Every head turned toward the corner. The human looked up from his datapad for the first time in hours. His dark eyes met each gaze in tone, calm and steady. The silence stretched. In that moment, without anyone understanding why, the entire room held its breath. The holographic display showed their doom in bright red numbers. Every simulation ended the same way. Total defeat within 14 days. General Crix ran another battle scenario, then another. Each time, the computer showed millions of dead and entire star system consumed by the wreck swarm. "Try the gamma formation," suggested Wing Commander Silas, his feathers drooping with exhaustion. They had been at this for 6 hours straight. The simulation ran. Red markers swept across the map like spilled blood. Defeat flashed on the screen in harsh letters. "What about splitting our forces?" asked Delegate Yura, though her crystal form had grown dim with fatigue. Another simulation. Another defeat. Admiral Voss leaned back in her chair, her blue skin now almost gray with stress. "We've tried everything. Direct assault, defensive positions, hit-and-run tactics, even evacuation plans. Nothing works." The room felt heavy with despair. Officers stared at empty coffee cups and datapads showing impossible numbers. Some alien delegates had started praying in their native languages. The mantis-like clickers made soft, sad sounds that meant acceptance of death. "The casualty estimates keep growing," reported a junior officer. "Current projections show 12 billion dead in the core systems alone." 12 billion. The number hung in the air like poison gas. General Crick stood up slowly, his scales now completely gray. "Perhaps it's time to consider complete evacuation. Save what populations we can." "Run where?" asked Wing Commander Silas. "They move faster than our transport ships. They'll hunt us across the galaxy." Old Thex looked around the room at the defeated faces. Proud warriors reduced to planning their own retreat. Brilliant strategists with no strategies left to try. But in the corner, the human still sat quietly, still reading his datapad like nothing had changed. "The Vrex don't just conquer," said Delegate Yura quietly. "They consume. Every organic molecule gets absorbed into their bioships. Every metal structure gets melted down for their war machine. There's no negotiating with them." "They are not even truly alive," added Admiral Voss. "They are more like a natural disaster with intelligence. You can't reason with a hurricane." The final simulation finished running. The computer had tested every possible combination of their remaining forces. The result was always the same: defeat in less than 2 weeks. Silence fell over the room like a blanket. Not the thoughtful quiet of planning, but the empty silence of the hopeless. Some officers closed their eyes. Others stayed at the ceiling. A few began quietly updating their personal messages to send home. It was then that Commander Minho looked up from his datapad. "I'll take a stealth ship behind their lines," he said. His voice was not loud, but every person in the room heard him clearly. "Single pilot mission. Target their command structure." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Wing Commander Silas's crest flattened against his skull in alarm. "That's insane. You'd be flying straight into their main fleet." Delegate Yura's crystal form flickered rapidly, showing her shock. The probability of success is almost zero. One small ship against millions of Rex vessels. General Crix leaned forward, his yellow eyes wide. "What could one person do that our entire combined fleet cannot accomplish?" But Minho's face remained calm, like he was discussing the weather instead of certain death. "I need basic stealth equipment. Food and water for 3 days. No backup crew." "No backup." Admiral Voss stood up. "Commander, that's suicide with extra steps." "I need room to work," Minho said simply. Old Thex felt his artificial eye focusing automatically on the human's face. Something cold moved down his spine. He had seen this look before, during the Rim Wars. Humans got this expression right before they did something that should have been impossible. "Generals," Thex said urgently, his voice cutting through the protests. "I've fought alongside humans in 3 different conflicts. When they volunteer for missions like this, when they get that particular look..." He gestured at Minho's calm face. We should listen carefully. But General Crix waved him away. Thex, I respect your experience, but one soldier cannot change the course of this war. The Vrex have millions of ships. Exactly my point, said Wing Commander Silas. It's brave, but meaningless, like throwing a pebble at a mountain. Delegate Yura's form brightened as she calculated rapidly. Even if Commander Minho successfully infiltrates their command ship, the damage one person could cause would be minimal. Their hive mind would simply adapt and continue. Minho waited patiently for the arguments to finish. Then he spoke again, his voice steady and quiet. I'm not planning to damage anything. Then what exactly are you planning? Asked Admiral Voss. The human smiled slightly, but it was not a happy expression. It was the kind of smile that made Thex's old war wounds ache with memory. Something they won't expect, Minho said. The room fell silent again. This time, it was not the silence of defeat, but a confusion mixed with a strange kind of hope. They did not understand what the human was planning, but his confidence was infectious. Finally, General Crix sighed heavily. Very well, Commander. If you want to die gloriously, we won't stop you. Take whatever equipment you need. They thought they were sending one brave soldier to an honorable death. None of them realized they had just approved the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created, a quiet man with a plan nobody else could understand. The stealth ship moved through space like a ghost. Commander Minho kept his hand steady on the controls as enemy patrol ships passed nearby. The Silent Dawn was small and quiet, designed to hide rather than fight. Its special coating bent light around it, making it nearly invisible to most sensors. Around him, the Vrex fleet stretched in all directions. Thousands of bioships moved in perfect formation, their living hulls pulsing with alien energy. Each ship looked like a giant insect made of metal and flesh. Green lights flickered along their surfaces like diseased veins. Minho had been flying for 8 hours, moving slowly through the enemy formation. One wrong move, one careless burst of speed, and the entire fleet would swarm him. But he moved with the patience of a hunter who understood his prey. The largest ship loomed ahead like a floating mountain. The Devourer's crown was 3 kilometers long and shaped like a massive beetle. Its surface crawled with smaller Vrex units, worker drones that maintained the living ship. Biomechanical towers rose from its back, pulsing with the signals that controlled the entire fleet. There, Minho whispered to himself, identifying a maintenance port near the ship's lower section. The opening was small, barely large enough for his ship, but it would do. The Silent Dawn slipped inside like a needle threading through cloth. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows as Minho powered down his engines. The ship's computer showed breathable atmosphere, though it smelled like rotting meat and machine oil. He gathered his equipment quickly. Basic tools, emergency supplies, and a small data unit that looked innocent but contained something far more dangerous. His black stealth suit would help him move unseen through the ship's corridors. The inside of the Vrex vessel was a nightmare of organic technology. Walls pulsed like living tissue, but metal cables ran through them like artificial veins. The floor felt spongy under his boots, warm and slightly wet. Strange sounds echoed through the passages, clicking, buzzing, and the wet sound of something breathing. Minho moved through maintenance shafts and air ducts with practiced skill. His file back at Coalition headquarters did not tell the full story of his training. Before joining the Galactic Defense Force, he had spent 5 years in Earth's most secret military unit. The Psychological Operations Division did not fight with guns or bombs. They fought with ideas. He had studied alien psychology for years, learning how different species thought and felt. The Vrex were supposed to be impossible to understand, a hive mind that acted as one giant organism. But Minho knew something his colleagues did not. Every thinking species, no matter how alien, had weaknesses in their minds. Instead of heading toward the bridge or the weapon systems, Minho crawled through the ship's guts toward a different target. The communication center was deep inside the vessel, a chamber filled with biomechanical computers that connected every Vrex ship in the fleet. The room pulsed with activity. Organic screens showed tactical data flowing between ships. Living cables carried messages faster than any electronic system. This was the brain of the entire invasion fleet, and Minho was going to poison it. He connected his data unit to the main communication array. The device looked simple, but it contained years of careful preparation. Inside were terabytes of human culture, carefully selected and organized for maximum psychological impact. The upload began. First came music. Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 3 flowed into the Vrex communication network, followed by a traditional Korean folk song his grandmother had sung to him as a child. The melodies were alien to the Vrex, who had never developed concepts of harmony or beauty. Next came poetry. Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 mixed with Emily Dickinson's verses about hope. Ancient Korean poems from the Silla dynasty spoke of love and loss. The Vrex hive mind, built for conquest and consumption, had no framework for understanding these emotional concepts. Then came the most dangerous weapon of all, laughter. Recordings of human children playing in parks, families sharing jokes at dinner tables, friends laughing together on lazy afternoons. The sound of joy, completely foreign to a species that knew only hunger and war. Throughout the ship, individual Vrex workers stopped what they were doing. For the first time in their species' history, they began to think as individuals instead of parts of a greater whole. The hive-mind connection flickered and wavered as millions of insect-like creatures experienced something impossible, curiosity about their own existence. Stories followed the music and laughter. Tales of redemption, where enemies became friends. Stories of choice, where beings decided to become something better than what they were born to be. Folk tales from dozens of human cultures that shared a common theme, the possibility of change. The Vrex communication network carried these ideas to every ship in the fleet. Workers stopped maintaining weapons and began creating strange patterns with their tools. Warriors forgot their battle positions and stood motionless, trying to understand the concept of mercy. Even the ship's biological systems began to fluctuate as the vessel itself was infected with alien thoughts. Alarms began to sound throughout the Devourer's crown. The hive mind was fragmenting, breaking apart as individuals began to question their purpose. But the damage was already spreading faster than they could stop it, carried by their own perfect communication system to every corner of their once unified fleet. Minho smiled quietly in the pulsing chamber, watching his upload continue. He was not destroying the Vrex. He was doing something far more dangerous. He was teaching them to think for themselves. The infection spread faster than any disease. On the bioship * Flesh Render *, Worker Unit 4847 stopped welding armor plates and began arranging metal scraps into patterns. The patterns had no military purpose, but something deep inside its insect brain found them pleasing. For the first time in its life, it was creating instead of destroying. 3 ships away, on the assault vessel * Bone Crusher *, an entire crew of warriors stood motionless in their battle stations. They were supposed to be preparing weapons for the next attack, but instead they listened to the strange sounds flowing through their communication system. Human children laughing. The sound made no sense, yet they could not stop listening. Commander Minho worked steadily in the communication center of the * Devourer's Crown Star. His data unit poured more human culture into the Vrex network. Stories of soldiers who threw down their weapons and became farmers. Tales of bitter enemies who learned to forgive each other. Recordings of humans who chose to heal instead of hurt. The Vrex had evolved as a perfect war machine. Every individual was connected to the hive mind, sharing thoughts and emotions instantly. This connection made them incredibly effective in battle, millions of units acting as one giant organism. But now that same connection had become their greatest weakness. On the medical ship * Woundmaker *, the chief surgeon stopped in the middle of an operation. Not surgery on an injured Vrex, but modifications to make warriors more deadly. The surgeon's hands trembled as it listened to a human story about a doctor who saved the life of an enemy soldier. The concept was impossible to understand, yet somehow deeply moving. Why? The surgeon whispered, using its individual voice for the first time in decades. Why save someone who wants to kill you? The question spread through the ship's neural network. Other Vrex heard it and began asking their own questions. Why do we fight? Why do we consume everything we find? Why don't we build things that last? Minho added more files to his broadcast. A recording of human musicians from different countries playing together, creating harmony from diversity. The story of a human general who refused to destroy a beautiful alien city, choosing to find another way to win the war. A simple children's song about friendship. The effects were visible from space. The * Flesh Render * had stopped all weapon production. Its biomechanical factories, designed to create instruments of death, were now producing strange sculptures. The ship's hull pulsed with new patterns of light, almost like it was trying to communicate in colors instead of aggression. The assault carrier Blood-Tide drifted out of formation. Its crew had become obsessed with the concept of music, trying to create their own sounds by tapping on metal walls and humming in their insect voices. The results were terrible by human standards, but they were trying, and that was something the Vrex had never done before. Captain Prime Zex, commander of the Devourer's Crown burst into Communication Center with a squad of elite warriors. His compound eyes glowed with fury as he saw the humans standing calmly among the biomechanical computers. Kill the contamination source. Zex ordered, but his warriors hesitated. They had been listening to the broadcast too. Stories of mercy, forgiveness, and second chances had infected their minds. For the first time in their lives, they questioned an order to kill. "Why must we kill?" asked Warrior Prime Click, lowering his weapon. The small flesh speaks of other choices. Zex felt his own certainty wavering. The hive-mind connection that usually gave him strength now carried doubt and confusion from thousands of ships. Individual Vrex were thinking for themselves, asking questions that had no answers in their military programming. Minho looked up at the Vrex commander with calm eyes. "Your fleet is experiencing consciousness," he said quietly. "Individual thought. Free will. These are gifts, not diseases. We are unity. We are purpose. We consume and conquer." Zex tried to maintain his authority, but his voice carried uncertainty. "But what if you could choose something else?" Minho asked. "What if you could create instead of destroy? Build instead of consume?" The question hit Zex like a physical blow. Throughout the fleet, millions of Vrex heard it through their shared network. Ships that had been moving in perfect attack formation began to slow and drift. Some turned away from their targets entirely. On the Coalition monitoring stations, alien officers watched their instruments with growing amazement. "Sir," reported a young technician to General Crix, "the Vrex fleet, it's stopping." "Stopping?" Crix leaned over the display. "What do you mean, stopping?" "They are not advancing anymore. Some ships are actually moving backward. And so, we're picking up strange transmissions from their vessels. It sounds like music." Wing Commander Silas spread his wings in disbelief. "Music? The Vrex don't make music." But they were learning. Across the fleet, individual Vrex experimented with creating sounds for beauty instead of intimidation. They shared their attempts through the communication network, encouraging each other like children learning to sing. The most militaristic species in the galaxy was discovering art. Warriors were questioning the purpose of war. And at the center of it all, one quiet human continued his broadcast, teaching an entire civilization that they could choose to become something better than monsters. The psychological weapon was working beyond Minho's wildest expectations. He was not destroying the Vrex. He was liberating them from their own nature. The Coalition war room fell silent as Commander Minho's voice crackled through the communication system. General Crick stared at the tactical display, unable to believe what he was seeing. The red markers that had shown the unstoppable Vrex advance were now scattered and confused. Some ships were moving backward. Others had stopped completely. "Mission accomplished," Minho said calmly. "The Vrex fleet is no longer a threat." Admiral Voss leaned forward, her blue skin pale with shock. "Commander, what's your status? Are you wounded? Do you need medical evacuation?" "I'm fine," Minho replied. "The enemy fleet is confused. Many ships are requesting communication with your diplomatic teams." Wing Commander Silas spread his wings wide in amazement. "Requesting communication? The Vrex don't talk, they eat." But the displays showed impossible things happening. Vrex bioships were broadcasting messages in broken Coalition standard. Strange music drifted from their communication channels. Some vessels were creating light patterns that looked almost like art. General Crix found his voice first. "Commander Minho, explain your mission results. What weapon did you deploy?" "Some kind of virus that affect their biotechnology." "No weapon," Minho answered simply. "I gave them something they'd never had before." "What?" demanded several voices at once. "Choices." The word hung in the air like smoke. Delegate Yora's crystal form flickered with rapid calculations, trying to understand how choices could destroy a fleet. But the evidence was right there on their screens, thousands of wrecked ships that had stopped fighting and started thinking. Old Thex stepped forward, his scarred face showing satisfaction mixed with ancient worry. Generals, this is what I tried to warn you about. Humans don't fight wars the same way we do. They don't just destroy their enemies, they change them. Change them how? Asked Admiral Voss. Thex pointed at the displays showing wrecked ships broadcasting music and art. They make their enemies remember that they can be something other than enemies. Over the next few hours, more impossible reports came in. Vrex workers were dismantling weapons and building sculptures. Warriors were asking questions about peace. Some ships had sent small shuttles with white flags made from torn metal, trying to signal surrender in human fashion. The most amazing message came from the Asterisk Devourer's crown Asterisk itself. Coalition beings, we request learning about friend-making, want to try, not eating choices, possible to grow flowers instead of war things. General Crick stared at the message for a full minute before speaking. A hive mind that conquered half the galaxy is asking us to teach them gardening. When Commander Minho finally returned to the Coalition flagship, the entire command crew was waiting. They expected to see a wounded hero, someone marked by desperate battle. Instead, they saw the same quiet man who had left 3 days ago, carrying only a small data pad and looking slightly tired. Commander, General Crick said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I offer you any reward you desire. Promotion to Admiral, command of your own fleet, medals of honor from every member world. Minho shook his head. Thank you, but I just want to return to my regular duties. File my mission report and get some sleep. Wing Commander Silas could not contain his curiosity. But how did you do it? How did you stop an entire invasion fleet without firing a single shot? Minho considered the question seriously. The Vrex were built to be perfect weapons. They never learned they could choose to be anything else. I just showed them some alternatives. Alternatives like what? Asked Delegate Yora. Music, stories, laughter, the idea that former enemies can become friends. Concepts they'd never encountered before. Minho paused. Every intelligent species can learn and grow. Sometimes they just need someone to show them how. Admiral Voss shook her head in amazement. You turned the most dangerous fleet in the galaxy into artists and philosophers. I reminded them that they had free will. Minho corrected. They chose to become artists and philosophers on their own. Old Thex nodded slowly. This is what humans do. They see possibilities where others see only problems. They find ways to turn enemies into allies, monsters into friends. The official mission report was the shortest in Coalition military history. Infiltrated enemy communications network. Introduced concept of choice and self-determination. Enemy fleet experienced collective identity crisis and ceased hostile operations. Request return to standard duty rotation. Commander Lee Minho. But the results lasted for decades. Over the following years, many former Vrex colonies joined the Coalition as peaceful members. They became known for their unique art that combined biological and mechanical elements. Their music, though strange to other species, told stories of transformation and hope. The Vrex who chose to join the Coalition often requested assignment to rebuilding projects. Former weapons of destruction became builders of hospitals, schools, and parks. They were especially good at growing things, their biomechanical knowledge helping create new forms of agriculture. General Crix kept Minho's final comment in his personal files. Sometimes the best way to defeat monsters is to show them they don't have to be monsters anymore. Years later, when young officers asked about the Vrex War, veterans would tell them about the day one quiet human changed the course of galactic history not with weapons, but with a simple idea that every being could choose to become something better.